Okay, we are live. This is live Chassidus from Sfat, Israel, and we are teaching the wisdom of the Baal Shem Tov, and this is focused on my book, Baal Shem Tov's Advice, 980 Transformational Tips, and it's really amazing stuff. And actually, the teaching that we're going to do now is really super amazing. Um, it really gets into something very, very special. So, the Baal Shem Tov says as follows: everything in this world can be used for good or evil. Our job is to choose. So that's a very profound idea because um, a lot of cultures, they look at the world, including within Judaism, they paint the world through a black and white image. There are basically three kinds of attitudes in the world. One attitude is that there is no such thing as right and wrong. It's just basically a dog eat dog world. Get whatever you can, and that's all that matters, right? That's one attitude. Another attitude is no, and this is really what Avraham Avinu, Abraham, brings to the world, and he brings a concept called personal responsibility. He brings a concept called divine accountability. And it doesn't matter what somebody else is doing, you have a God, and you are obligated by God to behave in a certain way. That, of course, becomes manifest more completely in the Torah. The Torah gives you, God says, listen, do this, don't do that. This is reward, punishment for Jews and for Gentiles. There's 7 Noahide laws for Gentiles. The whole world is basically in its own system with God. And it's not a dog-eat-dog world, because if a person does do that, there are consequences to that behavior. They will be punished. There was somebody that was a king, I think his name was Rudolph. He was kind of a secular person. This was the time that basically Europe was ruled by the Pope and by the Catholics, and he was kind of a friend of the Maharal of Prague. You've heard of the Maharal? Maharal of Prague was a very, very great man. In fact, the Kabbalah is based, not Kabbalah Tanya, is based on the Maharal of Prague. It's based on Shalah HaKadosh, as well as, very interesting, when I was by the Shalah, I was reading some Shalah. I was like literally reading a Chassidus. And of course, Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. So King Rudolph, there was some kind of decree where the Catholics wanted that the Jews, God forbid, would be expelled, and he didn't do it. And the Baal Shem Tov said to him, the Baal Shem Tov Maharal said to him, like, more than you helped them, you helped yourself. Because, as I like to say, there's such a thing called freedom of choice, but there is no such a thing called freedom of consequences. You can make choices in this life. God forbid I could jump off a bridge, but there will be a consequence to that choice. And that's kind of a given fact, which unfortunately is, we've said this before, but there's kind of a cycle in all of history which goes: bad times make strong people make good times, strong people make good times make weak people, or actually indulgent people. And indulgent people make bad times. And so therefore what happens is, like an addict, that they're not thinking about the consequences. Not that they're stupid. If you ask them individually, you think I should take drugs? They'll say, no, what a stupid thing to do, to take drugs. But they are not thinking about the consequences, and therefore they are focused on the desire. And that's a very dangerous thing for a society and for an individual, when our focus is on what I want as opposed to what actually will be the consequences. That's why we say, who is wise, whoever can see what will come from this action, right? So we're being, we have the, unfortunately, the left basically everywhere, which is basically coming up with these complete insanities, which if you actually implement them, like we saw in communism, the whole country is going to fall apart. Everybody's going to either die or starve or whatever. It's just like insanity. So the idea of, in a way, it says, Leiv Chacham Liyaminoi, the heart of the wise person is to the right. The idea is that you have an integration of your intelligence and your emotions. Now, a person has to have emotions in life. If you didn't have emotions, you wouldn't be alive. But you also have to have intelligence. And the healthy person is a person that the intelligence influences the emotions. The unhealthy person is a person that the emotions influence and take over the intelligence. So, but the thing is, a person can get a little bit radical in religion, right? As we do see within Islam. Certainly there are fundamentalist Christians. And even within Judaism, lahavdil, there can be a certain element of, if you want to call it, kind of, I don't know if the word is radicalization, but a rigidness. Rigidness is always a sign that a person is coming from fear, because when a person's in a state of love, they are open. Hello, how are you? Welcome. When a person is in a state of love, they are open, they are giving, and therefore they are flexible. But when a person is in a state of fear, what happens is we become rigid and we become very limited in our thinking. In fact, often we have very myopic way of thinking, like it has to be like this. And part of that is a kind of what we would call kind of like a control freak behavior. We do that in order because we're trying to protect ourselves from danger. And one of the ways we protect ourselves from danger is having this kind of hyper focus. Now, of course, the truth is in between. Very interestingly, I saw this from, what's his name? He wrote a book called Emotional Intelligence. His name is Emotional Intelligence by, I forget his name. Daniel what?
Coleman.
Yeah, Coleman or something. Coleman. Something like that. Yeah, Daniel. Yeah, very. I like this guy a lot because he's like a Harvard psychologist, but as opposed to most psychologists, which is they have this kind of theory, and that's it. This is it. Like if everyone just did this, everyone would be healthy, right? Like they've done a great job in the world's health. But he is different. He's like, I want to take the best, all the information I get out of psychology, and I want to give it to you, which is really useful because if you look at his stuff, it's like this tremendous, like he's the guy that like almost like a rabbi that like looks at all of halacha and says, okay, here's the bottom line. He looks at all of psychology. He's giving you, here's the bottom line. You go to his TED Talks and stuff like this. He's really good. So one of the things that he says, which is really quite fascinating, is this concept of that a person's effectiveness is smack in the middle. Is there a pen or a pencil here by any chance? Oh, thank you so much. Terem nikra oitim medavrim. Says as you request, already the thing comes. So we all know that there's what's called chesed and gvura, right? The right and left side. The side of we would call it the side of, it's called the side of love and the side of fear, right? So now in order to love, you have to feel safe because love it's just like if you want to climb a ladder, you have to feel safe. You're not going to climb that ladder if you think that ladder is dangerous. Now, in order to fear, you have to feel unsafe, right? So the divide between love and fear is basically safety. And so if you can all see this, I don't know if you can see it, but love is on the right and fear is on the left. Now, where is a person most effective in life? Now, we all want to be in love, right? That's like, oh, it's all beautiful. And like, Freud actually writes about this. I read quite a bit of Freud, which is that he says that, like people that are into art or the arts and stuff, he calls them like fantasy people. And people, he says, like going there to the arts because we all want to live in fantasy because fantasy is a beautiful place to live, right? Mm. There is no reality. It's all love and peace and kindness, except for the fact that it isn't, right? So the flip side is also a problem, right? Because the flip side is, I don't want to put any country or anything down, but like, you come from Azerbaijan or like Russia, there are countries that live in the exact opposite reality. It's not all free love, it's all free hate. Everybody basically hates everybody else. Is it kind of like that? Yeah, it's like that. Everybody hates everybody else. And effectively, it's one big war. It's chaos. And it's every man, my brother-in-law, he was a rabbi in Ukraine. So I asked him, how's the safety in Ukraine? He says, it depends which mafia is running the police station. Okay. Right? No, but it's really the way it works. And he told me once about Ukraine. And like, it's the kind of place that you could only make money if you kill somebody, right? So these are not healthy environments, right? These are unhealthy environments, but it's very real. I spoke to a guy. This guy was the head of the Latin gang in prison. He had whatever, got upset at the prison. He burnt it down and stuff. But when I met him, he was like kind of in a rehab, nice guy. I would say a tough guy, but a nice guy. And he said something very good to me. He said, listen, we didn't grow up like you grew up. We grew up, you eat or you get eaten. And so what it does is it creates a certain fight or flight consciousness within the humans, and the person basically becomes, as I heard from another guy who was a drug lord in this rehab place, he was like, I was crazy. He said, if a person looked at me the wrong way, I could kill him. Because the person becomes so heightened, they're so sensitive to what they're afraid of, just like the person that's, I don't know, in love. I don't know, somebody, let's say, is motivated by, I don't know, let's say sexuality. So, oh, wow, that's a beautiful woman, or that's a handsome guy, or something like that. That's one thing. Or somebody that's motivated by food. Oh, wow, that's a great restaurant, or whatever. Or architect. Wow, that's an amazing building, whatever. So you're seeing what your heart is attracted to. But the same thing is on the flip side when you're motivated by fear, which could often be fear of criticism. So, which can come from anywhere and anyone. You're like, oh wow, that person, he's got his nose is like that, and so you start creating all these, like this guy said, for 2,000 years we were called Jews in Iran until we came as Jewish people to Israel. Now we're called Iranians. This guy from Russia said, listen, in Russia I was called a Jew and everything. Here I'm called a Russian. What's going on? So why do people have this tendency to label people? Because actually they're afraid. And by creating a label, what they're doing is they're creating a safe box in which they can pick the person up and put the person over there. And so it's a very real thing, because unless you overcome that, you have a lot of, soldiers that have PTSD, and they might even have to live just together because they can't even be in society because they're so triggered. They're triggered very, very easily. And so the point is that getting ourselves to safety, that's not really what I want to be focused on today. It's another story. Somebody asked me just the other day, how do we get more trust in Hashem? So you have to learn Shar B'Tachin, which I have a translation on. You're welcome to go to my website, Kabbalah Love, one of the better websites. And in any event, the point is that I want to bring out is this, that where are we most effective in life? Now, there's a machine that I actually have. I could try to use it with people if you need. But it really was amazing. It changed my life. I went through a traumatic experience. And I don't know, for I think there were 2 years of my life, I can even hardly remember anything. Yeah. So it's a serious amount of anxiety, and so, but the thing is that this machine changed my life because I am quite aware of my inner world. And there's when you're in anxiety, your brain is it's going all the time, right? It's like a hose on high, and then I did this machine, and it goes just to the trickle. So now you're your brain is you got more control over everything. So the point, I'm trying to remember why I brought that out. I was just saying your inner world. Anyway, I forgot exactly why, but the one thing, oh yeah, now I remember why. Thank you. Because you see, the thing is that everybody wants to get, and this is the big mistake, people are trying to get into mindfulness and this and yoga and all this. Why? Because they're all trying to relax. What if the goal of life is not to be relaxed, right? What if the goal of life is not to retire with $1 million to Tahiti and do nothing? What if that is not the goal of life? I remember going to my grandfather after he was actually a millionaire. He was, thank God, and he was he was retired after 20 years. And he was busy learning Chumash. And I said to him, Zaidi, are you busy? I want to speak to him. He said, Ayid zalam al-mu'min. A Jew is always busy. So in other words, the goal of life is not to retire and drink pina coladas until you die. That's not the goal of life. The goal of life is to do more in life. Right? When God made man and woman, he said, this is the world. I want you to improve it. I want you to protect it. I want you to do something good with your lives. So the goal of life is something meaningful and something positive. It is not to basically veg out, which is the idea of in America, we call it vacation, a vacate, to let go, right? So in other words, people are not happy with working. They just want to let go. But letting go is not going to make you happy. Letting go is just going to make you a friend. What was his name again? Shem died of COVID. Igor Sorkin. Amazing guy, Igor. So Igor, I remember discussing this when he was quite younger. And I said to him, okay, what would you rather have? Stress in your life? And then when you're 90 years old, you look back and say, wow, I don't know, let's say I got married and I had a family and I was able to make money and I gave charity, whatever good stuff. Or would you like to have a stress-free life? And you're like, I had no stress. So which one do you prefer? So obviously any healthy, normal person would say, I prefer to have the stress and the accomplishment. So stress is actually a necessary component to accomplish. And the reason I was speaking about this machine is because this machine was really quite effective. And I had experiences where I have kind of a certain level of stress in my life where I could have totally gotten rid of all stress. But I always choose when I get to that level where I have no stress to bring myself into a state of stress. Because if I have no stress, you know what I do? I become lazy and I do nothing, right? And I already
What about love, like being motivated by love?
Okay, so that's a very good question. Very good question. Can you remind me of that question later? But that's actually a very good question. But in any event, so the point that John, Daniel Goleman, that's his name, Daniel Goleman, says is that we are, in our primary functionality, smack between chesed and gvura, smack between no stress and too much stress. And so therefore, this is one of the things that I teach. It's not my teaching, it comes from Kabbalah, which is very, obviously accurate, which is the person has to be able to balance their emotions, right? What is manic depressive? It's like, oh, I could do anything, I can do nothing. No, you have to be somewhere between. If I see myself getting too high, like, wow, literally too happy, and I can tell, thank God, that makes me a little bit irrational. I'm like, no, I can bring myself down. I don't want to be irrational. And if I can tell that I'm too down, well, obviously I have to lift myself up. So a person has to, ironically, if you imagine a diamond here, right? And on the top is happy and the bottom is sad. On the right is no stress. On the left is too much stress. You want to be in the center. You don't want to be too sad. You don't want to be too happy. You don't want to be too non-stressed. You don't want to be too stressed. Or if you want, you can move it a little bit here, a little bit towards the happier kind of, more relaxed state, or if you want to call it the more love state. But if it's too much, then you don't have the counterbalance, because everything in this world works in balance. Everything is balanced. Because the way God made this world, it's not like we come to the world. The statue is perfect, but it doesn't grow, it doesn't move, it doesn't do anything. But for a human being to actually function, for the two parts, Shalom Aleichem. Got some exercise there.
Yeah.
You want some water?
No, I have. Thank
Okay, I apologize about that.
Okay.
Sometimes you just gotta walk for the Torah.
Just as you said, as you wrote to me, I said to myself, I wonder if they're at a sin. And then you wrote, we're at a sin.
Yeah, because we used to do the class somewhere else.
Well, can you say again the idea about the fear and what was the other thing?
Fear, like safety and non-safety.
Or safety, okay.
Right.
Safety was in the middle of what again?
So basically, I'll draw it on this beautiful description here. You don't have like a dark pen or something, do you?
No, just the pencil.
Okay, actually, let me use the pencil. I think it's a drop darker. Thank you. Okay, so the point is that we're going to make a diamond over here, right? On the top of the diamond is happy, and the bottom of the diamond is sad. The right of the diamond is love, as well as safety, and they kind of go together. And the opposite side is fear and insecurity, and they kind of go together. Okay, so we're going to show for the billions of viewers. I don't know if you notice I hit that. Okay, this is it, right? That's it. Now, why is this super important? Super important. Because most people by nature, where do they want to be? They want to be happy, and they want to be here in love and safety. We think, oh, well, yeah, sure. If we're happy and we have love and safety, we're happy and we have love and safety, all will feel good. And it's true, you will feel good, but for how long? Right? Because if you don't have purpose and meaning and accomplishment in life, you can't be happy. Right?
And also respect, also.
Respect, yes, true. There's an emotional aspect there.
Meaning, if there's no respect, love can't.
That's true. Respect, yes, that is true. You need to have love, respect for love. That's absolutely true. And this is something else that people are not familiar with. Everybody's familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, right? Hierarchy. If not, you should be familiar. Abraham Maslow, he was a great Jewish psychologist, as most of them are. And he said, like, Freud studied sick people. He said, if you study sick people, you learn how to be sick. I want to study successful people. so we could learn how to be successful or healthy people. And basically, he created what's called, very accurate as well, a hierarchy of needs. He says at the bottom, a person needs physical safety. But he also speaks about, I think he speaks about this, if he didn't, he should have, he speaks about emotional safety. This is something that I discovered, that it's not enough to have, because basically, what is the opposite of safety? The opposite of safety is unsafety. So a person can be, and that's what I said, there are different kind of societies. You could have a society which is like love and peace and harmony, which is nice, and we all want love and peace and harmony, which is the way we should be born into, good parents, hopefully a good childhood. But ironically, there are studies that if everything works out for a person, they don't work out. A person that's spoiled does it, they become a maladjusted person. Now I have, funny, my wife just showed me, my aunt went on a podcast, and when I think about people that really have amazing children, but like really good children, they're not harsh parents, but they're very, very strict parents. There's no bending of their rules. They may have a lot of love in them. They have a lot of love, but there's no getting away with what they say is no. No means no, and there's no I could actually, when I think about all the families that I know, there are, as I think about it, 3 families. If I had to, maybe I can include my own as well, or a couple, but in any event, what they all have in common, these families, is, first of all, the mothers were very loving, but also very exact in their way. In other words, not in a harsh way, but they never let their kids get away with anything. Like in my house, what my mother said was the rule. There was no like arguing. And because she came from a mother which was maybe a little harsher, like Russia, but it was like completely like there was no argument whatsoever. So the point is that when you have this balance, right, the balance of chesed and gvura, that's when you have health. Anything that's too much to an extreme is not going to work. It's going to either kind of indulge someone to the point that they are effectively, I don't even want to use the word retarded, but effectively their expectations of reality are not aligned with reality. And that's why you have a lot of people today that say, I don't want to work. Why should I work? But the problem with that is you're not going to accomplish anything. You're not going to feel good about yourself. Then your children, if you have them, won't work either. What's going to happen then? So in other words, you have to have a sense of responsibility in this world. I've just been thinking of somebody that I know that really accomplishes a lot. And like, there is that constant like stress in the life. But at the end of the day, you could look at his day and say, wow, I did 10 things today. And if you could be all happy and do nothing, what are you going to look at your day? Are you going to feel good? So one of the things that, just using myself, if I may, as an example, I don't say it with ego, but I went through a period of time. Obviously we all go through different periods of time, but I went through probably a couple of years where I didn't, like, I was a rabbi and had a very busy job and it was all nice and everything. And for some reason, kind of politics, I had to leave that. And then I basically went through a couple of years where I wasn't really doing much. And I wasn't feeling great about myself, And then I started this blog. I have this blog, thank God. I think I'm the only person that has more posts than readers. But at the end of the day, I know that I'm making a difference, right? I don't make any money from this blog. And I even have to fundraise for the little bit that it costs to make it run. But the point is, I know that there are people around the world, I don't know, every year, let's say there are at least 20, 30,000 people that will like tap into the blog and it goes and so it makes me feel good. So I'm busy. I don't know if anyone's reading it, but I do know that some people are getting affected. I'm not making money out of it, but I am filling my soul because I'm doing good. I know a guy, this guy's a very interesting guy. Long story short, very, very holy man. He registered to be like a paratrooper and got whatever, 2 people next to him got shot, he got traumatized, the whole story in his life. And he went through like very emotional, difficult stuff. And he would just go to, this was in Africa, so you have these like black hospitals, which were not the best situation. He would just go and give out like, fruits to the people there. And he said like in his most difficult times, he always gives because it makes him feel good, which is a simple secret that a lot of us don't realize, that the more you're going to help others, because everybody in the world, as long as you're breathing in this planet, you can do good. Because there's not a single person in this world that doesn't need more love. Everyone in this world needs more love. maybe it's a 3-year-old child that's completely content from his parents. But if you become 5, you already need more love. Everybody in the world needs more love, right? And we are the source of love in this world. Where's it going to come from? It's not going to come from God. I mean, it does come from God, but in His way. But in terms of humans are we are what do you call it? Adam hu medini. We're social creatures. So of course God's love is beautiful, but a human being basically needs human beings, and we're all human beings. Everybody is in need of you. So the question is, are you waiting for everybody to give you the love to fill you up? Or are you going to say, no, this is my job in this world to give the love. And trust me, you're going to create a chain reaction. So it's kind of pretty simple, but it's just not that obvious that because some of us are so hurt. So we're waiting to get over our hurt and this and that. But step out of yourself. Like the Rebbe, when I think about the happiest people in the world that I can think of, seems to me, first of all, Bali Tshuva, people that become religious because they have this tremendous contrast of their aimless, meaningless life and now their meaningful life. But also shluchim, emissaries of the Rebbe. So you have all these emissaries of the Rebbe, and they're like men and women that give up their lives. My family's like kind of part of that team. Like I have a cousin. I mean, they were in China. Imagine bringing up your kids in China. But their lives, they're very happy people. Why? Because they know that their lives are filled with purpose. And now let's do a little meditation to really bring our consciousness of purpose, because consciousness of purpose is super, super critical, particularly today, where again, in terms of Maslow's hierarchies of needs, there are certain things that you need. You need shelter, you need food, you need emotional safety. And emotional safety is not always easy to find, because you could be living in an environment where people are abusive. Entire societies become abusive societies, and the biggest person is the person that can make the biggest insult to the other person. That's actually how people don't know this, but why did Trump become president? Because Obama invited him. It was really very disgusting. He invited him to a White House dinner, and for 10 minutes he just was insulting. So when you look at the video, it's like horrific, just shaming this person in public. He walked off the table. He said, "I will be the next president of the United States," and he became it.
Wow.
So the point is that there is this kind of culture in which, like, the person that can be most abusive, most cruel, or most demeaning is like cool, right?
He also did start the birther.
Huh?
He also did
He
start
did?
the birther thing. You
Okay.
know, like claiming it's not.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe
It's a
Obama.
cause and effect.
Okay, maybe there was a cause and effect. I don't know. I'm not going to go there. Fair enough. Maybe you're right. But in any event, the point of the matter is that we're quite vulnerable. We're vulnerable people, and so one of the people that certainly had the ability to get beyond this problem was kind of Nelson Mandela. Now I know a guy that kind of worked for Nelson Mandela. He took care of his. He was a PR manager. And he told me Nelson Mandela was a little bit like a Rebbe. He was just beyond the whole friction based on ego things. In fact, when Nelson Mandela was freed, he was walking around in the area he then lived where my uncle lives. My uncle was holding my cousin, who was like a little kid, innocent, a really sweet kid. And my uncle, of course, goes over to Nelson Mandela, and the little boy turns his head away from him. So Nelson Mandela says, "Oh, he's fighting old battles." So in other words, here he is in prison for 27 years, but he doesn't have any resentment. Now, you may not know this, but this is very interesting, because this shows the Rebbe's hand. You can't even imagine the Rebbe's hand or how the Rebbe influenced the world. So Nelson Mandela was with other black people from the ANC in prison, and the white government knew that they were going to be releasing them. And they didn't want them to come out as angry, bitter, hostile, vengeful people. So they happened to have a psychologist. This psychologist, her name is Ruth Benjamin. Ruth Benjamin wanted to make Aliyah. She converted to Judaism. And she, in fact, was told by the Rebbe to stay in South Africa and to stay as a psychologist. And she was hired by the government to deal with these people. And she was giving them like the Kutei Deburim, like stories of the previous Rebbe, all to bring out like the positivity. So basically the leadership of the ANC, which I lived in Africa for a long time, so I'm aware of this, particularly from this other guy, Louis Gavin, who was their PR manager, and he asked the Rebbe, should he do it or not, because it was illegal at that time. The Rebbe said, do it quietly and motivate it towards peace. So once they wanted to come out with a campaign like they stole our land, and they want to steal our vote, he said, no, that's not our campaign. And really, to the Rebbe's credit, and somewhat to their credit as well, they created what's called the Rainbow Nation. We're all here together. And that mentality, and this is why politics are very, very super important. And politicians have to be a lot more careful with their words, because a lot of the hatred that came into, certainly I grew up in America, and there wasn't this kind of abusive hatred between the parties. There was a certain element of respect. And I think what Obama brought was this kind of looking down, like really like shaming the other party. And now it's just become normal, which is not okay. And I think Lapid brought that into Israel. Again, this level of rhetoric. The rhetoric matters. Why? Because, if some bum on the street speaks in a certain way, it's not going to really matter because nobody takes them seriously. They say it's a bum on the street. But if the president of the United States behaves in a certain way, like even after Clinton did what he did, so I have a friend who's a psychiatrist, he told me his clients were saying, well, if the States could behave in this immoral manner, why can't I? Right? So it becomes a very great obligation of politicians, which many of them may not realize they have, because any person in a position of leadership has influence, whether you like it or not. While we're on the subject, a very beautiful teaching is the teaching of the Alter Rebbe, who says, it's not good for man to be alone. I will make a help opposing him, right? The very famous thing, which is a great question. What kind of help is an opposition? Help opposing. So Alter Rebbe says something very, very profound. He says that a help opposing is a mirror, right? You have something facing you and it mirrors you. He says also what the behavior of your wife is your own behavior. It's your mirror, because we know that in all dynamics where there's kind of what we would call mashpia and a makabel, a giver and a receiver, and most dynamics have that kind of dynamic in one way or another, basically the receiver will start to imitate, even in a conversation when one person is kind of the more dominant personality, the other person will start to imitate. We actually have mirror neurons in our brain, which is why it's very, very critical that we model ourselves after the Rebbe and the Rebbetzins, after our tzaddikim. That's why God gave them to us, because we have to have a model of behavior which is correct. And that's why it says that Elikim Yirah, es Elikim Yirah, you should fear God. There was a tzaddik, one of the Tanoim, Amoraim, that he went through the entire Torah. Whenever it says es, it means the rabbis to add something. So like it says, Bereshit bara Elikim es hashmayim v'asaretz, God created in the beginning heaven, es earth. So it says, Rashi explains, l'ravis kol tzvaim, which includes everything in heaven, everything in earth. I'm not going to go into that whole teaching. It's a whole thing on its own. So, Rabbeinu Osher. So, just as we were giving the teaching, look who walks. So the idea is, shalom, guys. Nice to have you with us. So the idea is that this rabbi is also a great thing of truth. Imagine he was going through the entire Torah, and he came to Eselikim. What can you add to God? Fearing God. So Rabbi Kiva said to him, it means fearing Talmidei Chachamim, adding the Talmid Chacham. Why? Because Hashem gave us these tzaddikim. It's very interesting. There were a couple of times the Rebbe actually described why is there the concept of a Rebbe. You can have the Torah, you can study the Torah. Why do you need a Rebbe? The Rebbe wrote, a Rebbe is a role model. You see an individual who has no fear of public opinion, he has no fear of anything but the fear of God. So this is a real role model to us of our behavior. Okay, how did I get into this? Got to loop back here. What was I saying? In any event, I did say I would do a little meditation to get us back into this concept of realizing, and it's very, very important, realizing that we are servants of God. We're here. Our sages teach us the whole world was created for me, and I was created to serve God. And if we can get this idea in our head, it's very interesting. This guy once wrote to the Rebbe that he's depressed. And it's a very interesting question. How's the Rebbe going to answer somebody that's depressed? And the Rebbe said something which was very fascinating to me. He says, you're depressed because you haven't undertaken what we call Kabbalah's O, the obligation to serve God. He said, wow, maybe that would make somebody more depressed. Now he's got to serve God. But no, that's what he said before. You don't get depressed from doing good. You get depressed from not doing good. Right? The soul, particularly the Jewish soul, feels anxiety. What's anxiety? When your inner and outer world are not matching. You know, if you thought the whole purpose of life is to climb a mountain and you were climbing a mountain, you'd feel good. If you think the whole purpose of life is not to climb a mountain, you're climbing a mountain, you'd feel bad. So we all have an inner world which knows the truth, but it has to match the outer world. And so part of it is getting out of the foolishness of the secular world, which basically is just a poor excuse to indulge in the pleasures of the body. So it's a war between the soul and the body. And this can slowly but surely, what happens in societies is that as the societies prosper, people start to think less, they indulge more. And there becomes this kind of almost like we have in certain places, this religion of indulgence. But you have to get back to the truth, which is the truth is the holiness. And if you can get to holiness and the holy perspective of why we're even here in the first place, like the previous Rebbe said, that people always knew that we were here to serve God. It was obvious. But we came to America, and America was, you're here to exercise your freedom of choice. No, that's not why you're here. You're here to serve God. You are creation of God to do his will. That's why you're here. There's no other reason why you're here. And once we can integrate this in our lives, we step out of all of our, in a way, depression, because depression is kind of, I wanted this and I didn't get this. But if, like, a soldiers generally don't get depressed. Why? Because they have a battle. They don't have time to think about what they wanted, what they didn't want. They've got a mission. You know, you look at, we got a lot of soldiers roaming around. None of them seem depressed to me because they're like focused. But it's the people that are, you know, have it good, have it this, whatever. They're the people that are getting depressed because they're unfocused. They don't have a clarity. So getting back for a second to Maslow's hierarchy. So a couple of things that Maslow said that people are not aware of. So first of all, there's this concept of emotional safety, which is a big thing. And then there's the concept of positive self-image. Positive self-image is very important because actually I had a very powerful experience. I think it was this morning where kind of I realized that on some level I hated myself. And I was able to, like, thank God, overcome that. Now, often that happens because somebody, I say there's depression, which is a person who's kind of upset with themselves, but there's repression where somebody else gives you a belief system about yourself that you are bad. And that is really the whole basis of bullying and anti-Semitism. And if you accept it, because if you don't accept it, like bullyism, anti-Semitism doesn't work. Why? Because you're just a stupid guy. It doesn't matter what you think, right? But if you comes from somebody, let's say your parent, that they were going through a bad day and they said something and you took it personal, that can really affect your image of yourself because you accept it as truth, right? So first of all, you're all beautiful people, everybody, including you guys, and we're wonderful people and we're good people. But having that belief in ourselves is very, very critical, the positive self-image. And part of the problem in the West is we have this kind of notion that we're here to, like, and part of it is like a jealousy thing. So when the TV came out in Japan, so suddenly they had girls having all these kind of issues around, you know, eating and being skinny, because before being fat was fun. And suddenly now it's a problem. Because you got 90123 and you're looking at the girls there and this and that, and you're comparing yourself. As Esther Chava says, to compare is to despair. And so you have this society which becomes materialistic, and this guy has a house like this, and this guy has a car. So funny, I was driving with this car. I was so happy I have a car here. And I was driving with my car. Now, of course, it has, like, it's spot style, you know, 10,000 bumps. So, and I came to Jerusalem and I parked there. I was like, oh my God, what am I driving? But it's fine, you know, like everybody's driving. Nobody thinks about the look of their car. Like, fancy car here would be out of place. You get to Jerusalem, suddenly you're like, what's going on here? You know? So the point is that you can get into this kind of, this cycle. You don't even realize you're in this cycle. And okay, so we have to get out of that cycle. So we're going to do a little meditation to help us get into the positive image. Okay, so take a deep breath. Breathe in Hashem. Let go of all of your thoughts for a moment. And see a beautiful light. See a beautiful light. And just focus your mind's eye on the light. And let that light come into your mind and flow down into your hands into your heart and into your body, your torso, your pelvic, into your legs, into your toes. Let that light just fill you. The light of Hashem filling you. And see all the darkness seep out from your toenails, just goes away, and there's only light in you. And now understand that we are all from Hashem. We're all here because we're here to add light into the world. And we all have a special place that we add light into. And if you see darkness in the world, don't see that as a problem, because light will always, always beat the darkness. If you just turn on a candle, there's no more darkness. If you shine your light, the darkness will go away. And so the mission of life is to just take the light of the Torah, the beautiful behaviors of the Torah and the mitzvahs, and also just what you think is right. It doesn't have to be Torah and mitzvahs per se, just as you sense the good that you can do. And that's the person you are. And say after me, I am a soldier of God. I am a soldier of God. I am a soldier of God. I am a soldier of light. I am a soldier of light. I am a candle of God. I am a candle of God. I am a candle of God. I am God's light. I am God's light. I am God's light. And once we have this perception of ourselves, we're certainly going to shine. We're certainly bring much greater light to the world. Okay, so in conclusion, I want to get back to this concept over here, and then finish with the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. And so this concept over here is important because we said that we would all like to live in pleasure. We all want to feel good. And so pleasure would be this place over here, which is, right, which is love and safety. That feels great, right? And happiness, whatever. And the flip side would be sadness or unsafety and fear. So we're kind of trying to run away from this side and get to that side. But the problem is that if you're just in this side, you're not going to have purpose and meaning. So you actually have to balance the two sides. Everything in this world operates through balance. If you're too happy, you have to bring yourself down. If you're too anxious, you have to try to get a little less anxious. Everything is about noticing your inner world and balancing that inner world. So ultimately, we want to be kind of somewhere over here. Okay? Yes, question.
You're talking about happiness of the animal soul or happiness of the godly soul?
So it's a little hard to really differentiate in a way, because happiness is feeling happy. I mean, you can go very deep into it and not feel happy from the animal soul and feel happy from the godly soul. But I think just in a general way, to say that generally speaking, you should be feeling happy-ish, and feeling safety-ish, right? And loving-ish, but always balancing that with, or maybe love should be stronger, but happy-ish and safety-ish, because if you're too happy and you're too safe, you can then lose touch with reality and maybe the problems of reality and the purpose of life. Now, before you ask the question about, what about, your question is about love?
Oh, could a person be motivated by love and not need that fear?
Right. Yeah, so I don't know. I feel that a person needs a certain motivated, like in between, right, being motivated by love, right, which is sweet, and being motivated by fear, which is not so fun, but you need a bit of that as well, is being motivated by purpose. And that's the ultimate. The ultimate is to be motivated by purpose, because love, like you see, many people, they fall in love and they fall out of love. And in fact, the more a person loves often is the more they hate later. So love is an emotion, and emotions can change. Love is ultimately an expression of what I want. And then the more I love, if I'm loving in an unhealthy way because it's expanding my sense of self and my ego, is the exact amount that I may hate later because my ego just got upset, right? So love and hate are actually two sides of the same coin. It's kind of an expansion of my ego. But whereas you can't be just some kind of, saint or monk if you're not connected to your emotions. You should have emotions. But they should be balanced with the Torah, which the Torah is like, yes, I love because Hashem tells me to love. Well, maybe right now Hashem's going to tell you to, I don't know, get divorced if that's the right thing to do. Or maybe Hashem's going to tell you now to go to war. Nobody wants to. We want peace. Maybe now you have to go to war. So the point is it has to be balanced with the mind, balanced with the Torah. Everybody has to have a mashpia, a personal mentor, which can help us balance because we all are biased towards our own emotions. And when you have a mashpia, a personal mentor, what that helps you do is get the outside perspective. I have a mashpia, and it's very, 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 very valuable because you may have a certain feeling and you're right, and it's not like you don't come from some wisdom, but yet maybe there's another perspective on the whole thing, and maybe you're 100% wrong. Maybe sometimes you can be so right that you're wrong. Maybe sometimes you're just trying to give to this person. Maybe this person doesn't need you to give to them. Maybe they need to learn a different way or something. So things are not black and white. You need help. The heart is kind of black and white. I feel this is the way it is the way it's got to be. Da, da, da. But the head is much more nuanced. Sometimes our heads are biased by our heart, or maybe the head is too much in fear. It's not even functioning properly, right? I was mentioning before, I went through a state of high anxiety, and I don't even have memories for 2 years of my life. Not like I was totally crazy or did anything bad, but I'm saying, generally speaking, because when we're in a total state of anxiety, it bypasses the prefrontal lobe. We're not even thinking logically. So you may be in a survival mode, and maybe you're just surviving, but that's all you're doing. And if you can go to somebody that's not in a state of anxiety, they may have a very smart solution for you. Right? But it's actually very hard to listen to them because you're so focused on you're gotta go do it. But the Rebbe gave us the systems. God gave us the systems to always succeed in life. You got to follow the system. The only way you're going to actually have total success is if you follow the system. I put out today Geula coaching, this concept, which if anybody wants to remind me, I'll share it with you. But basically, it's a very, very smart concept, which is look at the different quadrants in your life, okay? I said all of life is interactions. You have interactions, let's say, with your mother, with your father, with your friends, with God, where you have interactions with food, interactions with money. Everything's interactions with your bed. And now, ask yourself in each one of these things, how do I want to behave? Okay, with my father, maybe I want to call him once a week. My mother, my spouse, all these things. Get all the aspects of your life and say, how do I want to interact in this space? And then I'll show you, I did it for myself, make a calendar. So these are my list of people and stuff that I want interactions with, right? And then make a calendar, let's say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever. And now have a space. It's a very important spot. We're in the city of air. Now, when you're in air, you become a cloud and you float. So you need to be a little grounded. Make a calendar and write, and this really keeps me sane. Write what I'm going to do when. There are certain things that you should be doing when. Okay, maybe if your mother is different, but generally, certainly if not, you should have that. You should have it in general for whatever. And then the other very valuable thing of this calendar is you can number all of those things. Let's say I say, okay, I want to have weekly learning with my dad. Okay, that's number 2. So where do I want that to be? If you're not going to make a schedule, it's not going to happen. So, okay, Monday night, 8 o'clock. Okay, Monday night, 8 o'clock. That's when it's going to be. So if you do this process, you will find a lot of success. And once a week, go through your thing and update it. This is a very, very, very powerful process to do. But additionally, a person has to have a mashpia. Yeah, like the Rebbe says, you should have a mentor. Everybody should have a financial coach. Doesn't mean he's being paid money, just somebody in the business world, a friend. Ideally, somebody you're not paying money, somebody that just knows the business world. Right? People come to me with business advice. I'm not a businessman. It's not my expertise. I can tell you Judaism, but you need a business coach. You need a Rabbi Rebbetzin coach. Right, that is an expertise in my life, and I've been learning it my whole life. I can give you some guidance in that department. You need to eat healthy, right? The Rebbe says you have to eat healthy so you don't get sick. If you are sick, you have to go to a doctor who's a friend. Don't play doctor. God says, doctor should heal, and sometimes that's a psychiatrist as well. Go to them and listen to what they're saying. They've been spending decades researching this. They know it better than you, even if you have Google. So the point is that there's a system. And literally, what I just said will give you everything you need in life. Everything, because it includes everything. But it takes a lot of humility. because the ego would like to say, I know. If we can get outside of our ego and say, I need to listen, we will have a lot of blessings.
But how do you know who to listen to?
Right. So you have to go, the Rebbe says, to a friend who is somebody that you trust in this field, right?
Mhm.
So if it's in the field of life and spirituality, somebody that you trust. It's the field of business, somebody that you trust, right? I wouldn't go to my rabbi and ask him for business advice, right? I wouldn't go to my businessman and ask him for rabbinical advice. And in medicine as well, somebody that you trust. And in fact, it's difficult because we have so much information now that we don't trust people so much anymore because everybody can go into the Google and see the information. But as I spoke to this guy was an interesting guy. He was 99 years old when I met him. I wanted him to put on tefillin. He said, Rabbi, I'm over 90. Go slow. So anyway, he was a guy, he saw Hitler come into, what was the first country Hitler took over? Austria. He saw Hitler come into Austria. He escaped with his mother, became part of the British brigade, whatever. He fought like Rommel, and he became part of the Haganah 7 years. He saw it all. And he was reading for 90 years straight, history. This is a smart guy. So I asked him a question. I said to him, it was interesting, he was an older man. I said, what do you think of the internet? So much information. He says, yes, but how much of it is true? Good thought. So it doesn't matter if you have Google in the fingertips. Who wrote that article that you're reading? Who says it's true? When I look at Wikipedia, things that I have intimate knowledge about, Wikipedia articles on Chabad, which I know Chabad, I grew up in Chabad, I would say 90% of it is absolute garbage. Does that mean every single article you're reading in Wikipedia, 90% is garbage, right? So
you can go in and edit it anytime.
Right. Anybody could edit it, right?
Well,
So the point is that the internet, now, it's not to take away, the point is that the system of God is truth. You use his system, you'll get the truth. You don't use his system, you won't get the truth. It's very simple. It's like I said before, life gives us free choice. It doesn't give us free consequences. It doesn't give us options of truth. Truth is one truth. The Rebbe said there are 1,000 wrong directions. There's one right direction. Okay, in conclusion, the teaching of Baal Shem, a very, 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 very profound and beautiful teaching. And we were saying before that religions can make this mistake, and we can make this mistake. Okay, there has to be a sense of right and wrong. Now you have cultures, there's no right and wrong. There's just whatever, peace and nirvana or feeling good and pleasure. No, there is right and wrong. However, it's very important to understand that is not a rigid thing like this device over here. Is it right or is it wrong? It actually can be the most right thing in the world and can be the most wrong thing in the world, right? The more power something has, was a lady, she was speaking to the Rebbe about intimacy, and the Rebbe said a very good line. He said, intimacy is like a nuclear power. It could be the most amazing or the most destructive force. Hundreds of millions of homes have energy from nuclear, and it's clean energy. A lot of millions of people died from it, So everything, the more power something has, your ego is very powerful. But if you use for the good, powerful force of good, money can do a lot. It could be used for a lot of good. So everything, the more powerful something is, actually the more its ability, and our job in this world, and this is one of the most profound ideas and teachings in life, and actually take some time to think about this. Think about things. Ask yourself one question. What is the good of everything, including yourself? And that is its secret. The Baal Shem Tov said that the gematria of our light is Ra's secret. If you can find the secret of everything, you can shed its light. You can bring everything as light, the light of God. But in order to bring it out, you have to find its secret. So if I ask myself, what is the good of the internet? Right? So the internet, I can learn Torah, I can give charity, I can teach people Torah. Okay, now I understand what I should and shouldn't be doing on the internet. Everything else, don't do. Simple. What is the good of food? It can make me healthy. Great, eat healthy. Don't do anything else with food. What is the good of, Zevi? I could be a loving person. Good. Everything else, don't do. So figure out what's the good of the table. I don't know. We can study Torah. We can have friendship. Good. That's what it's here for. Everything has a specified purpose. So if you could just do this, think about everything around the world. What is the good of this thing? That is why it's here in this world. Did you have any other questions?
I think that's it.
Thank you. Okay, good. They will go around quickly. Everybody can share the good of something. I don't know. Think of something. What's it?
Good.
Yeah, the good.
The good of either being young or feeling young.
Oh,
You feel right or young, you feel that.
good. Yeah, very good point. The good of being young is energy. The Rebbe spoke about the greatness of like older people should influence younger people because they have all this energy and they can put it in the right direction. The good of being young and feeling young. That's great. Beautiful. Yeah, you.
The good of feeling connected.
Connected. Okay, good. What's the good?
I mean,
Being connected.
yeah. The good. I don't know. You have to think.
It's interesting because even that concept of connection is very interesting. I saw a letter. This guy wrote to the Rebbe like he doesn't have friends. Now, the Rebbe was a good person. He was answering people, trying to help them. The Rebbe gave a fascinating answer. He said the goal of life is not to have friends. So feeling connected is a good thing because it brings a sense of unity or you could help someone. But needing connection, or we all need connection, that's the truth. But like making your life about friendship is not good because goodness is usually about what you give, not so much about what you get. Okay? Rifki?
I was thinking glass,
Glass, okay.
like windows, like you
Yeah.
could look inside or outside, but then you could also it's insulating.
Beautiful. The goodness of glass. You can see in and out. It's insulating. Beautiful, right? And that gives you the purpose of glass. It's wonderful. Yes.
Getting to be here in this class.
Getting to be here in this class. Yes, very good.
This is cool.
What's the good of that? Okay. I hope you take away the Rebbe would say speech without something that action, So the good of the class would be some better takeaway. So they're good, but thank you.
Okay, that's a little hard, but I'll say something kind of silly. Colors.
Colors, yeah. And the good is
Well, it
beauty.
makes you feel a certain way, or you could use it to arrangements. You could use it to be artistic, I guess.
Yeah, very good point. I never thought about it. The good of colors. It could have an effect. If you're smart, you can really make differences. I think they painted a prison pink because it makes people calmer.
Oh wow.
Yeah. In fact, I just saw this today that the color of chesed is white, color of gvura is red. So mix it between Tiferes is pink. So, yeah, that's interesting. Do you have like expertise in colors?
Expertise. I mean, is there some institution that gives
Yeah,
presentations
there's a
on
lot.
it?
There's a lot. People that look for graphic design, there's a lot of colors. Yeah.
It's a whole psychology of colors.
Yeah, it's a big thing. It's a very big thing. Yeah. I go with black and white. Yeah.
I'd say the good of learning, the goodness of learning,
Nice.
that connects to thought,
Yeah.
and therefore in that
Yeah.
our speech and actions are a result.
Yeah.
So the more we learn, the more we enrich,
Yeah.
the more we can do.
Beautiful, the good of learning. And that's an interesting thing, the good of learning. It's a very profound subject because, there's the concept of grease. Can I borrow the pencil for a second? Thank you so much. The concept of grease is yavan. And it's very interesting because they say our culture is kind of this little battle between Judaism and Greek culture. And the battle is very interesting because we both start with a Yud. Hashem's name is Yud K Vav K, right? Now the Yud is a very special letter because it connects like kind of the letter of intelligence. So just for those that don't know, I'll draw a Yud here. And the Yud is the smallest letter. And what the Yud does is it has this point on top and it connects us to God, right? And so Jewish intelligence is basically allowing the intelligence of God, divine revelation, intelligence to come and then seep down into us. But Greek intelligence becomes a Yud, and then it has a Vav, Yavan, and the vav goes like this. And then it has a final nun, kind of goes like this. And so you notice something interesting is that it starts off just with this pure intelligence, but then it starts to go lower. And then it descends under the line. And that's what happens in kind of universities. We're seeing that now. It may start off with like this idealistic thing, but it actually becomes debased and depraved.
Mhm.
Why? Because it's missing the key factor of intelligence, which is ethics and God and morality. And that's what happened literally in Germany. They were the most intelligent nation. They literally were doctors and lawyers and judges, and they created a system of murdering. They killed 1 million Jewish children, never mind how many gays and gypsies. It's just a murder machine, a horrific murder machine. That's what's happening with the terrorists. You know, they're even more savage. So the point is that what you spoke about learning is very important because there's the good of learning.
Mhm.
And when we use this one word, the good, it's a very powerful word. People asked the previous Rebbe, which political system or perhaps religion is closest to Judaism? So he said the good in each.
Mm.
So there's good in various politicals. There's certain goods in democracy. There's actually certain goods in communism. Certain goods in authoritative. There are goods in all these things. Yet, what the truth of the matter is, and even in other religions there are goods, but it's only the good of it that is good. The bad of it is not good. If it's not good, and this is something that Alter Rebbe teaches us in Tanya, that there are 3 realms of reality. And this is the big mistake that we make. There's the realm of good, there's the realm of neutral, and there's the realm of bad. Now, just because something is neutral, say eating, doesn't mean that it's good. And we kind of live in the neutral realm because the child that grows up, or basically as we're a tiny baby, we're not thinking good or bad. We're just thinking hungry or not hungry, attention or not attention, cold or not cold. So that's kind of our basic structure, is neither good nor bad. Now we have a good heart, right? But we also can have an anger side to us or a vengeance side when we get offended. So the good and bad are mixed into this neutral ball. And so now our job in a certain sense is to sift it. That's what happened in the Garden of Eden. First it was good, but then he introduced the bad. Now good and bad got mixed up like a soup. It's got some good flavors and got some bad flavors. Now you got to separate it. And the only way you can separate it is by looking at the good of everything. So like you were saying about learning, is learning good? The answer is yes, if it leads to good. But just learning for the sake of knowledge is selfish, right? You were talking before about what you said, connection. Connection for the sake of pleasure is selfish. It's not going to lead to good because what happens, and that's what happens in relationships often, it's about how I feel and it makes me feel good. But what about if you don't make me feel good today? Am I still here or am I out the door? So that's why
Versus what you give.
Yeah, that's why you have to have a sense of obligation to God. Because if you have a sense of obligation to God, and certainly even more important, you have a mashpia, somebody that you humble yourself to and ask your mashpia, should I or shouldn't I? Then you will be a godly person. But if not, particularly today, where society literally does not give you shame over almost any behavior. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, you're not even doing, like, there's no sense of shame if I get divorced, no sense of shame if I do this, no sense of shame. So you don't even have a pride and shame connected to this. So that big thing that can protect us is not there. So now all you have is indulge or don't indulge, unless you get yourself under control. We got a dog, we got to lead him, L'chaim v'levracha. Okay. Pleasure. Let's see here. Okay, everybody.
You both kind of look similar.
Good to have you
No.
Were you
with
aware of
us.
that? You
I
have
don't think
similar.
so.
Yes, you do. You have similar smiles. Ask other people. Yes, do they?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you are very different, but like something about you. Yeah.
There's something because when you first walked in,
Mhm.
I was like, wait a second. I thought she was here already.
That's funny. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's my. I mean, I of course I realized you were another person, but there was something in my head that said, "Wow."
All week long, I've been seeing people who look like other people, and I keep getting them mixed up.
Okay.
It's a-
Anyway, yeah.
Thanks for sharing.